15th, 2020 is called to order. I was going to have Brooke Kiltz do the Pledge of Allegiance, but how about Megan Feast?
All right. I pledge
allegiance
to the
to
flag
flag
of the United States of America,
and
and
to
the republic which stands one nation
under
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hey, we're getting better at this.
I don't know about that. Still
Hey,
not-
we were more in sync this time than we have been.
I can't wait till we can do it in person again. Then.
Yes.
All right. Donna, will you do the roll call, please?
I will. Councilmember Bode.
Here.
There you are. Councilmember Feast.
Here.
Councilmember Inesco.
Here.
Mayor Dorsey.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Peterson.
Here.
Councilmember McDowell.
Present.
Councilmember Schmidt.
Here.
There you go,
All right,
Mr.
thank
Mayor.
you. Does council have any late changes to the agenda? Hearing none. I want to say now that members of the public can make comments during the public comment period, as well as the business agenda and the action agenda. Option 1, you join the Zoom meeting by clicking on the link that is displayed on the city's webpage. The link is listed on the agendas and minutes page under the tab that says more. Option 2, you can email City Manager Jeff Knighton. And option 3, you can call Jeff's office phone, but the email address and phone number are displayed on the screen of the Mason Web TV streaming video. So we'll move on to the consented. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Wait. Who made the motion or said yes, Eric?
I did once.
Okay,
Eric,
thank you.
I'll second it.
and a second. Okay, there's a motion to approve the consent agenda as published. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to general public comment. Donna, do we have anyone interested in making a public comment tonight?
Yes, we do. I can see that Matthew Woodruff has his hand raised. So Matthew, if you can unmute yourself, you will have 3 minutes to give your public comments.
Thank you, and good evening. It is good to see the council again. I was here 2 weeks ago asking for the council to consider reopening the playgrounds in our public parks so that our children could run and play on a playground. And that hasn't happened yet. They're still closed, and so I'm going to raise the concern again. I'm not really sure if the council is considering the public's opinion on the matter. So I did what any modern day person would do and went to Facebook, went to our community bulletin and put a poll and just said, do you think our playgrounds should be open? Currently, the parks are open and the playgrounds are closed. And 65% of the people who responded said that they should be open, and 35% said that they should stay closed. That's nearly a 2/3 majority want the parks to have the playgrounds open to the children. And I wonder if the council is considering what the people think, or if they go out and actively ask them what they think, or if they just wait and see if anyone joins the Zoom meeting. I hope that you do. I hope that you're out looking and asking the people what they think, because I know I have a lot of neighbors that would like to have it open. So I would appreciate it if you would again consider opening up our public playgrounds so that our kids can then run and play, because frankly, being able to run and play on a grassy field with the playground right next to you and being told you can't do it is pretty torture to kids. Not actual torture, but metaphorical torture. It's like giving candy to everyone else and then not being able to get candy yourself. It just doesn't seem right to them. They want to know why they can't go on it. And all we can say is, I don't know, let's go to a phase 2 county where we can go onto a playground and play like we can in Pierce County. Or let's go to Thurston County and go play rec baseball at the playgrounds right next to the Capitol Mall. So I would strongly appreciate your consideration and opening up our playgrounds. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Is there anyone else, Donna?
I'm looking here, Mr. Mayor. No, there is no one else at this time.
Jen
Oh,
Woodruff.
Jen, you need to unmute yourself. Would you like to make a public comment, Jen?
Yes, I would.
Okay, you may
I'm
be.
sure as you can all tell, I have the same last name as Matthew, so I'm his wife. And I decided to jump in here and just have a slightly different perspective. As a stay-at-home mother, I'm pleading with you guys to reopen the playgrounds and encourage some level of normalcy for our community's children. For most of this year, they've lost so much of their typical daily life activities, such as school, church, play dates, and intermittent access to playgrounds. And a lot of this is outside of our control, but this is something that you guys can give back to our children. You did choose to reopen the playgrounds and let them stay open for a few months, then you closed them back up, and losing that was very difficult for my kids as well as many others, I'm sure. And as parents, we're doing our best to maintain some level of normalcy for them in this, so that this time in history doesn't leave them traumatized. And I know I work daily to do that for our 3 children. We have a 7-year-old, a 4-year-old, and an almost 2-year-old. So I'm right in that perfect range of the kids who would need to be playing at that playground. So one last thing is I looked at the values of the city council, and a few of which kind of rang in for me was encouraging pride in our local neighborhoods and providing recreational amenities. And unfortunately, we have lost the recreational activities, and it doesn't feel great when I go into Olympia or I go into Belfair and I see that those places are open, but ours are by choice not. So that is really unfortunate because we've lived here for over 3 years and it's been wonderful. So please give us parents back the basic right to decide what's best for our kids and trust the citizens of your town. Thank you. That's all I have.
All right, thank you, Jen. Is that all, Donna, then?
That is all, Mr. Mayor.
That's all? Thank you, guys. All right. Now we have a presentation from Public Works Director Jay Harris about the capital improvement program.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council. Jay Harris, your Public Works Director, and I have Ken Gill here also, our City Engineer. And I'm going to share the screen here in a moment to talk about the 2021 capital improvement plan. And give me just a moment to share the screen, okay? Can everybody see the screen?
Yep.
Great. So the 2021 capital improvement plan, on the first slide, I got these from the Historical Society, their website, and it was interesting, the dirt road, and usually you brought your mechanic with you, right? That the mechanic would go on a lot of your road trips and such with you. This was supposed to be one of the first roadway paving projects in the city. I don't know what street it is. And then I like Coda Street from the 40s, that you can see it was a robust little city with asphalt pavement and vehicles and people, pedestrians really taking over. So Ken and I are going to be switching off on this presentation. So Civic Center parking lot, Ken.
So this is the parking lot that's just right over my right shoulder. So it's the gravel lot that's dusty in the summer and full of puddles in the winter. So Aaron already mentioned we've got a grant. That's the second bullet. We basically want to pave it, build a basketball court, 2 pickleball courts, and a lot of landscaping. So we'll find out in June, in next year actually. So if we'll find out if we get a grant for electrical vehicle charging. But I really want to get this done. Whenever it rains out there, Dawn always complains to me that her feet get wet when she comes into the parking lot. So I really want to get this one done for Donna and finish this one up. So it's kind of a pet project of mine. Next slide. Residential paving is the next one. This is a huge improvement to our residents. We just finished up the 2020 residential paving. Last year we did West Mountain View. This year we did East Mountain View. This year we got a price of $87 a ton. I've never gotten that good of a price on asphalt in my entire career. And it's the reason why we get such a great price is because you have a really well-trained staff in your public works department. They do all the prep with their grinder. They do all of the traffic control. In addition, they put all the edge rock. So it's very attractive to bidders. Last year's came from Ellensburg. This one came from Belfair. So it really adds to the quality of those residential neighborhoods that hadn't seen a new paved street in 30 to 40 years. So looking forward to doing this again next year.
And I'll be coming back to you the second meeting in November to talk more about our paving programs, where we're going for the next 5 years, some high-level funding discussions, that sort of thing. So second meeting in November, we'll be chatting more about paving.
Excellent. So Railroad Avenue is the #1 project in your secure TIP. Been working hard on it since I showed up about a year ago. The project needs to go on a little bit of a diet, and we're working towards that. I know city manager's been working also hard on acquiring the right-of-way to build part of that trail that's shown in the bottom slide. So also TIB is one of our funding partners. So we continue to push forward on the design of that and chase some funding sources. So anyway, that's the Western Gateway.
So the maintenance division laydown yard, currently the maintenance division is in a little 2-acre site. The site obviously has a huge hill up above it, and Parks is in there also. We don't have any room to lay down manholes and pipe and to just grow into the future. So one of the ideas here is slowly move away over a long period of time up to a larger site. So this particular project, we're looking at a site that we have up on the hill, and we are looking at using the power line area to store materials in. And then at the bottom of the slide there, you can see this wooded area would be where the future maintenance yard would go. And currently we have Gray and Osborne working on conceptual design plans that just shows the different storage needs for the buildings, admin building, Vector truck storage, material storage, that sort of thing. I went through a similar process in Newburgh, a long-term plan to build a facility that is immediately occupiable for emergency response. So long-term out, we hope to get this done. This is sort of the first phase in all that, where we get the site cleaned up, get some fencing in, get some utilities subbed in, and get some lighting, and have the ability to start storing all of the materials that we use all in one spot. Street sweeper. So our current street sweeper is 11 years old. Maintenance costs are going up on it. A lot of moving parts on these things. The proposal is to buy a new street sweeper that's a vacuum style sweeper. And over the last 10 plus years, the technology has got quite a bit better. I did a operations and maintenance analysis on it. The city manager requested that. to see how a new sweeper and us operating it would compare to contract sweeping. Unfortunately, we don't have a contract sweeper here or nearby the city. My last job we had a contract sweeper that was like 4 miles away. And so the pricing was pretty attractive there by using contract sweeping. Here though, we couldn't get a lot of people to respond. And the person that did had an 1.5-hour drive time to get his sweeper here, several times a week. And it just, it doesn't pencil out. So with our stormwater, new stormwater plan, street sweepings and integral part. In the next year or so, we have to identify the routes, the intervals, and stick to that with the state. And so with this new piece of equipment, we'll be able to keep up on our stormwater permit promises also.
Sewer comprehensive plan guides our growth of our sewer system. The previous council meeting, we talked about part of the study is taking some of the flows that occur in West Mountain View in that area and redirecting them to our reclaim plant. So I spent a lot of time on that, and I won't go into more into that, but we hope to have this done end of next year. So the reclaim plant is in that same discussion where we're looking at adding on a tank at our reclaim plant that's not there now, that allows us to have potential storage, infiltrate into Goldsboro Creek. As part of this process, we'll be looking at the additional needs for our water that we present or we prepare there.
So the wastewater treatment plant slack tide tank. So slack tide is when the water's out. And when we have high flows at the plant, we don't want to be running water into a bay that there's no water. And so we want the ability to take treated water and run it back through the plant again. There's a lot of storage as you go through the whole process of the plant. So we wonder, the goal is to recirculate the water. The permit violation that we had last fall was because we didn't have the ability to do that. So if we have some failures in some systems and some pumps, we can actually just get the water and take it and run it back through again. The storm has passed by then. And so it gives us significant redundancy for our main wastewater treatment plant. The membrane plant filters, council before I got here had the people who were on council at that time had a presentation where we put in new filters in 2019. So tank number 1 was done. Tank 2 and 3 also need to be done. The filters are some are torn, getting clogged up, and we need to put new filters in the cassettes and to keep the membrane treatment plant online and activated. And having the 3 filters available gives us tremendous redundancy in our system. We're a little worried right now that we're running on these failing pieces of equipment, and we could be doing emergency repairs there in the middle of the winter. And you want to be proactive with something like this. Reactive could mean a permit violation, and that's what we want to stay away from. So the Front Street Pipe Overflow Project, is this you, Ken?
That's me.
That's you, okay.
Right. So what you see in the bottom left with the purple roof, that's the Neelan Park Sewer Pump Station. And then also going east-west of the picture, that's Goldsboro Creek. And just east of the bridge, you see some falls. Those are some rocks that are there. Right in there is a gravity line. That is something that is a kind of a thing of the past. It needs to go away. It still serves for some use for maintenance purposes. But this is $30,000 to study that and see what we can do to make that go away. So that's this project. If you have any other questions, I can talk about it. That's all I prepared. C Street landfill remediation. We've talked about that quite a bit. We're kind of right now, we're in the public outreach. Today, we just got the draft cleanup action plan, so we can certainly share that with council, but staff is reviewing that. And we can certainly share that with, but this is keeping that project going to closure. Well One High School tank to pipe replacement. So right now we have a gravity concrete water main that connects from the former springs that are up at the intersection of K Street and 13th. And it used to feed a water tank that's down in the bottom lower part of that photograph. And Jay's doing a good job with his pointer pointing that out. So that is a thing in the past. The springs are not used as our water source anymore. We are served by the well field though. So we want to pressurize and line that old line rather than dig it all up and replace it, and pressurize that line to make sure that we have a secure water or clean water source from those wells to that tank. So this project will replace that line to the length of that blue line that's shown on that airfoil.
So I gave a presentation to folks about the water meter AMI project. So the goal of the project is to get to a full radio read system, which has an antenna on one of our reservoirs. There's a transmitter in the meter box. A lot of the smaller meters will be replaced to the new iPearl meters, and hire a contractor to come do this. Something like this would probably take them 8 weeks. Our guys will be working with them, and obviously we have finance. We got to work with finance department and the billing department, but it would enable customer service to look at current readings on meters, close out accounts, and then also the customer will have a bunch of tools they'll be able to use online where they can get on and see what their use is, and manage their water a little better. And then the system also has software that will send us alerts when there's abnormal water use in our mainline system and in the metering system. We'll have pressure and temperature points all through the system. So we will be able to monitor what's happening in our system. We'll know when there's a fire flow event happening because the pressure will drop in the region there. And we'll know when people are drawing water, in the middle of the night, and then we call the fire district. There's supposed to be submitting water loss reports, and they're not right now. So it's going to give us a ton of abilities for the city and for the customer both. So the last project we have is the American Water Infrastructure Act. This is required by the EPA, and we have to have a risk assessment done of the system. And you can see the various things that the risk and resiliency assessment, some of the items that we have to do. And then with that, we have to have the emergency response plan also done. We have an aging plan right now for the water system that will be upgraded or updated to be current. And then also talk more about the security and cybersecurity for the water system. And this AMI project will go a long ways in helping us in some of that, also making our system quite a bit more secure. That's the capital improvement, the 2021 capital improvement project presentation, and we're here to answer any questions.
I had a question about the sweeper. You had made mention related to stormwater management and other things like that. How are we going to track where we sweep? What's the method that we're going to use to report where we've swept and how frequently?
Yeah, great question. We're actually going to have a sweeping map. And so the goal is to know that you're the second Tuesday of every month, and sometime between 8 and 10, the sweeper is going to be going by. In Tualatin and Newburgh, we did that in both locations. And it actually, people moved their cars off the street because they knew the sweeper was coming by, right? So the actual GPS location on the sweeper, you can do all that also. But the best thing to do is just have a street sweeping schedule and stick to it. The state's going to require that from us. And so it's a known quantity.
That was exactly what I was getting at. So we'll have an actual schedule. So we'll be sweeping weekly. And I assume we're not doing that now, correct?
Correct. It's on an as-needed basis, except for downtown. We're pretty regular on that. But we're probably going to be downtown. The current proposal, and we're probably going to adjust this, but downtown will probably be weekly, depending on season, obviously. The collectors and arterials will be monthly, and then residential will be every other month, depending on time of year. Like during leaf season, I mean, all bets are off, right? When we put sand down for a snowstorm, we got to get back out and pick it all up, sort of thing. So the current proposal is going to be 6 times a year for residential, every month for arterials and collectors, and then downtown probably every week is what we're thinking.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, Jay, this is Kevin. You do downtown, what time of day would that be, you think? A lot of places open pretty early and pretty tough to move cars once they're, you know, employees are parking there. How would that work?
Yeah, so what the proposal is there is later in the evening or first thing early bird in the morning. So I'm talking 4 or 5 a.m.
Okay.
The problem is street sweepers make a little bit of noise. That's going to be one of our criteria. And what you do is you turn the vacuum down on it. It's a multi-speed sweeper. You got to go slower when you're doing downtown early in the morning.
Right.
So the proposal is that in Newburgh, we actually went to contract street sweeping, and it was the Fred Meyer's parking lot person that we contracted with, that when they got done with Fred Meyer's, they'd come over and do our downtown. That worked out pretty good. It was middle of the night, and they were able to go to low noise mode so we don't wake a bunch of people up.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
So since we're getting a little bit in your weeds here, considering that we'd be increasing the use of the asset, that means that there's increased use of FTE time with that asset, I'm assuming. So considering that we've done some budget cuts on, you know, our staff, don't have to answer this today, although definitely want to understand how that balance is.
Correct. So these employees already exist at the city. We're not hiring a new employee for the street sweeper. That the person is working on storm or street projects already. So they'll just be allocated to a little bit more sweeper time. When you look at it, in Newburgh, we had pretty much a full-time street sweeper. Here, we don't even make less than half to make all those routes every month. So yeah, we're going to be doing more than we're doing now. But I think once they get these routes down and they're on a regular basis, we should be able to clip through them pretty quickly.
I had just a couple of questions. First, in regards to the wastewater treatment plant, I'm so glad to see that we're ensuring that we're doing our part to support aquaculture in that area, because I know that a lot of the properties there are particularly in city limits, but are very much affected by that. But ultimately, we're looking at about $750,000 in that equipment. So my question is what is the life expectancy for those MBRs? And is that something that we have built into a regular replacement schedule, perhaps in a phased approach? And I know, Jay, that you're just getting all of this under your belt at the moment, but if you could speak to the life expectancy of those assets and what the schedule might look like.
Yeah, so Kubota, we bought the membrane filters that we bought about 10 years ago now were their first generation filters. They're on the third or fourth generation now. The lifespan of the filters have been increased significantly per Kubota. We have to get the Kubota filters because they fit the cassettes and all that, so they're proprietary, right? But for the things that I've read, these filters should be much more reliable than the first generation filters. And then we just need to make sure that we're pulling them, keeping them clean, getting them back in for the manufacturer's recommendations. And we're hopeful to get, more than, 10 plus years out of this next set of filters. One thing that's important about this membrane plant is the limited complexity. I mean, it's a complex plant, but when you take a tour of the membrane plant and you take a tour of the main plant, and I don't know if council has been on a tour of both plants, and I'll get you out if you haven't been, and maybe even as a group, but the complexity is far less up at the membrane plant in terms of what's happening out there, and the quality of effluent from the plant is near second to none. Now, I'm not going to drink a glass of water out of that plant, you see some people that do it. You've been on tours where they drank it before. But, this plant is state of the art, and we keep up on these filters and the pumps and the electrical control systems and all that up there. And, maybe even add on to the membrane plant, and over time, take the main plant offline, less and less and less down in the bay, more and more into recharging the aquifer. It's a good thing for everybody.
Thank you so much. The other question I had was with regard to the Western Gateway project. We have on again, off again, had conversations with the county commission to look at if there's an opportunity to extend that project into the county's area and theoretically reduce the costs on both projects. Has there been any update to that, or is that a conversation that's still ongoing?
I can answer that. So Jay and I have met with Laura Swanson and her staff, and they have some money, an allocation that they received from the state. So we've met with them, we've got their application, but we've been in preliminary talks with them with that. And we'll continue to have those talks with them. So for sure, I would love to see that project expand if the cost per mile goes down, right? You get economy of scale, but kind of where we're at right now is that it's outside of our budget what we want to do. So right now we'll be looking for additional funding sources, but also looking to try to figure out ways to make the cost go down as the pavement's near failure.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'm going to stop sharing the screen here.
Anyone else have any questions for Jay and Ken? Okay, thank you, gentlemen. At this time, I'm going to recess from our regular meeting and open a public hearing. Finance Director Aaron B. Miller has details for us about an ordinance on refunding debt.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Deputy Mayor, council members. We had on August 18th, we had a presentation on a refunding opportunity, and this is the next step in that. Just as kind of from 30,000 foot view, what the city is looking to do is to refund 7 separate debt instruments into one refunding bond. And we would save on interest costs, very similar to refinancing a home. The interest rate would go down and we would save moving forward debt service costs due to the lower interest rate. The refunding would also shorten several of our debts 5 to 7 years. And so we'd be able to eliminate debt faster than we currently would under the current schedule. The strategy that we are employing is, in order to achieve the maximum savings that we can, we are going to issue these as what's called GO bonds, which means the full faith and credit of the city is behind the repayment of the debt. And that's going to help lead to even lower interest rates. State law, we talked about this a bit on the 18th, state law allows the council to issue what's called councilmatic bonds, not to exceed 1.5% of the city's assessed valuation. The ordinance before you then will do a lot of things, but I wanted to make mention of a few things. It will designate the city's finance director as the designated representative to approve the bond sale. It also will state that the aggregate principal amount of the refunded bonds cannot exceed 10 million. We will be well short of that. We're going to be refunding about $9 million of bonds. The final maturity of the bonds cannot exceed 2052. That's the final maturity date of the bonds, or the longest final maturity date of one of the bonds that we are refunding. So we cannot extend that date. And in fact, we are, as I mentioned, shortening those dates. The aggregate purchase price of the bonds cannot be less than 95% or greater than 135% of the aggregate stated principal of the bonds. That gets into discounts and premiums depending on the maturity date of the pieces that people are buying. They may buy them at a premium, which means they'll pay a little bit higher price to achieve a higher interest rate, or they may pay them on a discount. Right now, the most current information is they're projecting about that we would the aggregate would be about 107%, so just a little bit over. The good news is if the majority of it is being bought on a premium, the principal amount is reduced because we're going to get more money on a par value, if that makes sense, than we would if it's a discount. So that would even lower our principal payment even more. The true interest cost of the bond cannot exceed 4%. The true interest cost really includes all of the cost of bond issuance, and importantly, it includes the time value of money. So I think we talked about this a little bit on the 18th. $1 today is worth more than $1 tomorrow, and the true interest costs calculates that and qualifies that in the calculation. The bonds need to be sold for a price that results in a net present value savings of at least 3%. When we talked on the 18th, we were in the middle of historically low rates, and it was looking like about a $2.7 million savings, or a 1.7 net present value savings. And that was about 18%. So well above that 3%. Over the last month, rates have gone up slightly. They've gone up about 0.15%, or what we call 15 basis points. So back when we first started looking at this refunding, interest rates on the bond would be about 1.65 for a 20-year bond. That's crept up to about 1.8. So our savings has reduced. There's nothing we can do about that. But the projected savings is still very significant. It's about 2.5, little over 2.5 million now, with a net present value savings of about 1.6 million. And that's still about 16.5%, 17%. So we're still way over that 3% requirement. Finally, the finance director, in the ordinance, the finance director is required at the next reasonable opportunity to report to council on the final outcome of the bond sale to ensure compliance with all of these measures. And so we'll get back to you. We sell the bonds on the 14th. They'll settle on the 28th. And I'm hoping that we can just sneak in a quick 5-minute summary, maybe on the council meeting on the 3rd. That would be the next reasonable opportunity to do that. Outside of that, Unless there's any questions, I'm happy to answer those, but that's really all I have.
Looks like no questions. All right. Is anybody signed up for public testimony, Donna?
I don't see anybody, but let me scroll down the list here. No, there is no one, Mr. Mayor.
And in that case, could you give us the first reading of ordinance number 1955-0820?
Yes, I will. And this is a really long title. Thank you to our finance director, Aaron B. Miller. Ordinance number 1955-0820, an ordinance of the city of Shelton, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Shelton, Washington, authorizing the issuance of one or more series of limited tax general obligation refunding bonds in the aggregate principal amount of not to exceed $10 million for the purpose of refunding certain outstanding obligations of the city, approving the sale of the bonds, and delegating the authority to approve the final terms of the bonds. Phew.
Okay. Good job, Donna. I want to invite any council members have any questions, comments?
Just a comment. I just want to reiterate what Mr. Miller was telling us and informing us and educating us about the cost savings overall to our city and our customers and whatnot. It's very important for our constituency to understand that we've got a great team. My colleagues here on the city council before I became a city council person did a heck of a lot of hard work on budgeting to make sure that we are solvent and that we are managing our finances properly. And I just want to say hats off to everyone, and thanks, Aaron, for your hard work on this, because this is a big deal for us. You know, for us to be as far in the red as we were a couple of years ago, to be in a spot to actually say that we can refinance and save up to 16.5%, 17% is a huge deal. I mean, we can put that $1.6 million in a lot of different places. And, to Mr. Woodruff and Jen Woodruff's point, those are dollars that we can repurpose into our playgrounds and enhance how we deliver these nice services in our town. So again, huge kudos to all of you. And I've actually just been kind of a great bystander in all the great work that you all have done. So thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any idea what a savings in a perfect world, this $2.7 million, 1.7 million, 18% reduction would be a annually, as a savings and payments?
Yeah, so we do. It would equate to about $70,000 a year. The scheduled savings, though, really is in the out years, between years 2047 and 2052, because we are shortening the life of many of our bonds. Rather than having a debt service that is currently scheduled for about $405,000 in 2047, that will go down to $44,000. So that's where we're really going to make our hay on that. I think about 1.9 million of that savings happens in those last years, but also annually the savings before that amount, before that 2047, it's about $30,000 or so, I would guess, just on average. So it's a nice savings every year.
Thank you.
Yeah, that said, though, I don't want to put a damper on the positive side of this, but this is wrapped up in sewer system debt, correct? So this money would not necessarily be general fund. The savings would not be necessarily transferable to general fund activities, correct?
It is significantly sewer, but there are other debt instruments in there that are general fund responsibility. So while it won't be it's not a watershed, there will be some there.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. But at least we'll be leaving our grandkids something to be happy about. Right now, there's a whole lot not to be happy about.
Amen to that.
So does the council concur to place this item on the October 6, 2020 action agenda?
Yes.
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 All right. So now we're
Good
going
job,
to close the public hearing and open a public hearing. What? Close the public hearing and open a public hearing about a cable television franchise agreement. City Manager Jeff Knighton is going to speak to us about a cable TV franchise agreement.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, deputy mayors, and members of council. We actually have two franchise agreements for you tonight. One ordinance that's going to, if council approves, will adopt two different agreements. The agreements you have before you are with Comcast and with Hood Canal Communications. And both the agreements, as they are required to be, are the same in content, so that both companies are playing on a level playing field. And just going over this real quick, we have been negotiating with Comcast and with Hood Canal Communications for quite a while. And we've come to this agreement that's before you this evening. It does comply with all of the state and federal regulations that apply to telecom operations. And it complies with Shelton Municipal Code Chapter 5.44. We do have a little bit of information here. We have options and alternatives for you to consider. We can re-enter negotiations for modifications if any council members are interested in that. We can adopt the agreements as presented, or we can take no action at this time. Basically, what this is for these telecom companies to use the city's rights of way for transmission of their product. And a big chunk of this agreement, or these agreements rather, are restoration of right of ways after work is done, what the standards are, when permits are necessary to be obtained from the city before starting work, when they aren't, insurance requirements, those types of things. The agreements were provided to you in your packets, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
I'd like to thank you for tackling this. I mean, this is long overdue. I believe it goes back to maybe 3 city managers have been talking about the franchise agreements, and thanks for getting it done. Just a couple more to go, and
yeah,
we'll be done.
After going through the process, I can see why they put it off.
Great job, though. Thank you, and staff.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll echo what Councilmember Onisco said. Thank you, Jeff. I know this wasn't easy or enjoyable, but I'm grateful that our telecommunications partners will fall under sort of the same umbrella that any other contractor that would be working with the city will follow. And I think this is a great step towards consistency and our openness and how we're going to be doing business in a more professionally and organized manner in the future. So thank you for setting that pace.
I think the first thing I said to you, Jeff, when you came on board was franchise agreements. Yeah, you're going on that, and you did a good job. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right. Don, has anyone signed up for public testimony?
No, Mr. Mayor, there's no one signed up.
In that case, can I ask for the first reading of ordinance number 1956-0920?
Yes. Ordinance number 1956-0920, an ordinance of the city of Shelton, Washington, granting cable television franchises and adopting franchise agreements to govern Comcast Cable Communications and Hood Canal Communications within the city limits.
All right, thank you. Any more questions for Jeff on that or comments? If not, Does the council concur to place this item on October 6, 2020 action agenda?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So we'll close the public hearing and resume the regular meeting. First item on the action agenda is a resolution for the FCS Group Rate Study, Amendment Number 3. Public Works Administrative Manager Brooke Kiltz will give us more information.
All right, thank you, Mayor. I kind of rushed through the meeting last week, so I just wanted to clarify and make sure if you guys had any questions. The original contract was for the water and sewer rate study. And the first amendment to that contract was to add the stormwater portion to it. So everything that's under your budget fiscal information on your briefing sheet is related to the stormwater portion only. So I wanted to just make sure that was clear. And there hasn't been any changes since the last meeting, but I'm available for any questions.
All right. Public comment?
No, there isn't anyone signed up.
Okay. Will you please give me a reading for resolution number 1169-0820?
Yes, I will. Resolution number 1169-0820, a resolution of the Council of the City of Shelton, Washington, authorizing the city manager to approve contract amendment number 3 to the professional services agreement with Financial Consulting Solutions Group Incorporated for the completion of the stormwater rate study.
All right, thank you, Donna.
You're welcome.
We have a motion.
I move to adopt resolution number 1169-0820, a resolution authorizing the city manager to sign amendment number 3 to the rate studies contract with FCS Group.
All right. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Brooke? All right, we have a motion and a second to adopt resolution number 1169-0820, a resolution authorizing the city manager to sign amendment number 3 to the rate studies contract with FCS Group. All in favor? Say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. All right. The next action item is resolution number 1170-0820 regarding signing authority for contracts. City Manager Jeff Knight has the details for us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and members of council. The resolution before you this evening is intended to make more efficient use of city services and make the purchasing and procurement portion of what we do here a little more streamlined and a little more efficient. We're working toward that across all city operations at all times. And this is one of the ways that we are addressing that problem, are addressing that issue. What the resolution that before you does is if a line item is clearly delineated in the adopted budget, or the city council adopts the budget for the previous year, and the amount of whatever purchase it happens to be is under $30,000, the staff does not have to return to council for express authorization to make that purchase. But in an acknowledgement to council's ultimate control over our finances, anything that's over $30,000, even if it was clearly outlined in the adopted budget, we would need to come back to council one time to express our intention to purchase whatever particular item it would be. This is also somewhat of an interim resolution to streamline these things now. As you're aware, we are working on a full policy update for the city across all operations, operational departments in the city. And one of those policy updates will contain substantially similar information to what you have in the resolution for you. That's what I have prepared for this evening. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Jeff, does department head still need your authority to spend that $15,000, or they still come to you first?
They would come to me. That's something that we would discuss in our weekly leadership team meetings. And then, excuse me, I forgot to mention that. So under this resolution, department heads would also have authority to 15,000. And those department heads could delegate up to 5,000 of their authority to a supervisor. So that there's accountability there for what the supervisors purchase up to a limited amount. But it's also, as I said, intended to streamline and make our operations more efficient. And these things only apply to items that were expressly approved by the council in the adopted budget. And one of the things we won't do when we're facing a situation like we have now, where we have a lot of unknown, the fiscal environment is very unknown going forward, don't have a lot of data points. That's when we become extremely careful with our spending. And all of those things, of course, during my weekly briefings, bi-weekly briefings with the council members, these are things that we discuss. Nobody here is going to go off the deep end and start writing checks for anything under the sun. This is just intended to make us more efficient, more operationally efficient.
And this would be if there was an umbrella for maintenance and operation, the supervisor could just spend $15,000.
Supervisors could spend 5, department heads could spend 50.
Okay. I meant department heads, excuse me. So even though it's not a budgeted like a project that we approved for $30,000 or $15,000, it could be replacing a pump.
Yeah, that's in a different area of the budget. This is only for things that you've identified clearly outlined, like a roller or a mower.
Okay.
That you'll hear about in a little bit.
Okay, that's what I meant. Wasn't an umbrella under like just an operations budget. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Public comment, Donna?
No, Mr. Mayor, there's no one signed up.
All right, at this point, we have for a reading of resolution number 1170-0820.
Resolution number 1170-0820, a resolution of the City of Shelton, Washington, authorizing staff signing authority for contracts.
All right, do we have a motion?
I'll read that long one. I move to adopt resolution number 1170-0820, a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute contracts, purchases, and procure professional services up to $30,000 if previously approved in the annual budget, and to direct staff to draft a comprehensive purchasing and contracting policy.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Now I have to read what Megan just read. Have a motion and a second to adopt resolution number 1170-0820, a resolution authorizing city manager to execute contracts, purchases, and procure professional services up to $30,000 if previously approved in the annual budget, and to direct staff to draft a comprehensive purchasing and contracting policy. All in favor, say aye.
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 Can I have one point of discussion before we vote? And the point of discussion is that just to be clear, that the policy and procedure should be in place before authorization for these types of purchases start happening.
So the resolution that council will presumably adopt tonight would allow that to happen now.
Okay.
It's an interim step before the policy is adopted.
Okay. So I appreciate and everything that is written here is in alignment with regular procurement, thresholds and whatnot for those positions. My concern is that without a process in place, going back to kind of what Eric was saying, is that without a policy and a process, I just want to be very thoughtful about making sure that, because ultimately it has to have certain signatures on it. So if the interim is that we adopt this, it's still going to go through your final approval ultimately.
Absolutely. I'm responsible for whatever.
Just
I'm
want,
responsible for everything that happens in this building, and I am accountable to that.
Yeah, even if he doesn't approve it, he's still responsible for it.
yep, just throwing that out there before we do the final vote.
Yep.
All right.
All right. So back to all in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries. Now we have Public Works Director Jay Harris to speak to us about a resolution for purchasing a roller.
Good evening, Council, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Jay Harris, your Public Works Director again. So one of my first meetings with you, we got the approval to purchase a small roller for Public Works. Our old roller is 24 years old, and we budgeted $70,000 to purchase two mowers this year, or two rollers this year. We, because of the COVID outbreak, we held off on purchasing the larger roller until we knew what the financial impacts were going to be. With the finance director's assistance at the EM&R funds have had minimal impacts with the outbreak. And so the request tonight is to buy the second roller. So the first roller, the small one in May, was for $17,000. The larger roller is $40,000. Will still be about $12,000 under budget for the total purchase.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
If we're ready for that. Do we know how much the maintenance cost last year for the rollers was?
For the existing larger roller?
Yes.
I don't know exactly what the costs were, but we it had oil changes, that sort of thing, filter changes. The problem is with the existing roller is wore out. When you run the roller, it has quite a bit of deflection in it, and there's some major components in the roller that will need to be replaced to keep it serviceable. And it's at end of life. The guys have wore the thing out.
Okay. And for the new roller, the season's over. So would this be sitting until next spring?
Yes and no. The larger roller might be sitting a little more. The smaller roller is out on trench repairs and that sort of thing. The larger roller, if you're getting some better days, we can go out and put some gravel down on some of the roads and that sort of thing. We don't want to grade gravel roads until it starts raining because of the dust, obviously. And we want the material to be a little bit wet. So we might get some use in it this fall for some of the roadway work. And then we'll have it ready for early next spring, back online again. And it's all weather dependent, right?
We held off because we didn't know financially what COVID was going to bring us. And so far it's not been terrible, but we still haven't received our August sales tax. And that's after the $600, extra unemployment and the $1,200 stimulus money. So I'm not really comfortable quite yet approving this at this time. But that's just my opinion.
One comment to that is the EM&R fund is funded through the street fund, storm fund, water funds, sewer funds. So they're not related as much to, obviously property taxes and general fund sort of items. So the fund rents the equipment out to whoever's using it. And so primarily the utility funds and the street funds will be paying for the new roller.
Yeah, Jeff sent me that information today. I asked him for that.
Okay.
And while I don't think any of us are keen on spending money during the pandemic, I do recognize that there are certain services which we need to continue to provide. And if equipment wears out, we do have to replace it. So I appreciate the staff delaying this purchase and waiting and providing a successful, in my opinion, alternative to the original plan, so that we're able to continue to move forward.
All right, I guess we'll move to public comment. Donna, do we have any of that?
We do not, Mr. Mayor.
All right, I'll ask for a reading of resolution number 1171-0820.
Resolution number 1171-0820, a resolution of the Council of the City of Shelton, Washington, authorizing the city manager to sign a purchase order for the acquisition of a compaction roller.
All right, do we have a motion?
I move to adopt resolution number 1172-0820, a resolution authorizing the city manager to sign purchase orders number P.
Excuse me.
Wait,
Councilman.
Joe.
Am I on the wrong one?
Yeah, it's resolution.
1171.
Don't. Okay. 1171-818, or excuse me. Correction. I move to adopt resolution number 1171-0820. Are we?
There you go.
Yep. A resolution authorizing the city manager to sign purchase order number PO2035 for the purchase of a BOMAG roller.
Second.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Any more questions or comments about this before we move on?
Yeah, I've thought about this a lot as well. And because this is budgeted out of our sewer and street fund, I'm going to back this one up. But I'm with Eric too, you know, around being really thoughtful about expenditures that, especially out of our general fund. And we have an obligation to our citizens and our businesses to keep our streets good to go. So I'm going to, that's my comment.
I would agree with you. We have it budgeted and it's something we're going to need next year. And do we want to wait till it fails on us to try to buy a new one? Because it's not far away from it. So.
Yeah, and just to add to the conversation, you know, I don't disagree that being fiscally responsible during difficult times, but at the same time, I trust that this is a necessary purchase. We have plenty of funds in the EM&R to cover this. It's on the plan. No surprises to us. We were expecting this, so I'm supportive of staff moving this forward as a need.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, we have a motion and a second to adopt resolution number 1171-0820. A resolution authorizing city manager to sign purchase order number PO2035 for the purchase of a BOMAG roller. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
I got one. Okay, motion carries. All right. One more item for Jay, a resolution for a mower purchase.
Good evening, Council. Jay Harris again. So the mower, our current mower, John Deere, is about 20 years old and has a lot of hours on it. It has a side stow mower on it, which means that the arm will go out to go mow the brush along the bank or whatever, come back in and stow on the side. So it's pretty wide when we're going down the road. The goal is to replace the John Deere tractor and to get a mower boom arm that's actually behind the driver. It reduces the width of the tractor and still will extend out to mow banks and that sort of thing. The goal was to replace the mower early this spring, but because of COVID, we held off. And it was unfortunate because right during the growing season, the 20-year-old mower was down for 2 or 3 weeks. We had to rebuild all the hydraulics on it, pump and controls and that. Luckily, Kalen, our mechanic, we didn't have to send it out. He spent a significant amount of time getting it back up and running. But this is one of the reasons why you want to keep equipment that you really need online and newer if possible. So the proposal, it was in this year's budget for $215,000 to replace the existing John Deere mower with a new one, and to purchase a rear stow mower that's attached to it for a total of about $175,000, well under the $215,000 budget. The equipment is sitting there. So the mower that we wanted to get in early spring is still available. People aren't buying things right now. And so the tractor company is very happy that we're talking to them and, keeping them going also. So we might be able to get it in time for a little bit of fall mowing and tune-up. And then next spring is when the mower really comes back online again to give us some reliability.
All right, Donna, do we have a public comment?
Let's see. No, Mr. Mayor, we do not.
Okay, I'll ask for a reading of resolution number 1172-0820.
Resolution number 1172-0820, a resolution of the Council of the City of Shelton, Washington, authorizing the city manager to sign purchase orders for the acquisition of a tractor and mower attachment.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have a motion?
I move to adopt resolution number 1172-0820, a resolution authorizing the city manager to sign purchase order numbers PO 2020 and PO 2036 for the purchase of a John Deere tractor and Alamo rear stow boom mower attachment.
All right, thank you.
Second. That was for me, Kevin. I seconded.
Oh, you did? Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments on the mower?
I still have my same concerns. We're still waiting for August sales tax. We're still waiting to see what COVID's going to bring. All the concerns are the same as with the roller.
Anyone else? Okay. All right. We have a motion and a second to adopt resolution number 1172-0820, a resolution authorizing the city manager to sign purchase orders for PO 2020 and PO 2036 for the purchase of a John Deere tractor and Alamo rear stow boom mower attachment. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Motion carries. Okay, we'll move on to the administrative reports. Jeff, will you give us your city manager report, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, deputy mayor and members of council, excuse me. Tonight, there's a couple of things I wanted to talk about, all related to our public safety efforts. First, I want to sincerely thank Chief Moody and members of the Shelton Police Department for their professionalism during the demonstrations we experienced over the Labor Day weekend. I thought that our officers, our public safety staff, the Mason County Sheriff's Office staff that worked with us, as well as the Washington State Patrol staff that worked with us, did an excellent job of maintaining order and allowing people to exercise their constitutional rights. went as well as can be expected. And I thought that everybody that I've spoken with has said the same. And my thanks go out to all of those folks that participated in that activity. The other thing I wanted to talk about a little bit, and we've seen it over and over again, particularly in Oregon and Washington, but I'm sure elsewhere in the country, we just hear about Oregon and Washington more, are the rumors on social media sites, particularly Facebook in this case, that get started. And then because Facebook puts each of us into our own little groups, our own little echo chambers, it feeds on fear and misinformation. And I think a lot of us have seen the news reports from Oregon, in particular from Medford, where there was a Facebook post where that stated these 6 individuals with pictures are Antifa, and they set gas cans around businesses downtown in order to cause the city to go up. And the police department in Medford had to put out a press release that says none of this is true. None of it is. And the very same thing happened in our community, not to that extent, but very closely to it. There were rumors of gas cans downtown. There were rumors of pallets of bricks. The drums that are used for soil sampling over near the old Olson Furniture Building, the current county building number 10 for the county, those were brought in by Antifa. There were, people bringing in 55-gallon drums of diesel fuel and road flares on a Mason Transit bus. I mean, these are the kinds of things that are not at all helpful to anyone, and they spread fear and divisiveness. And there's really not any reason for it, unless you want to call attention to yourself on a social media platform. And I'm asking people to stop, because it does not help anyone, particularly our public safety officers, when they have a report of 150 people camped up in the valley, the Skoke Valley. They're getting on buses to come into town. It's ridiculous. And yeah, it tears communities and states and countries, frankly, apart. I ask people to stop, and before they perpetuate rumors or before they talk to people, to actually think about what they're saying, because it doesn't help. And if you're interested in helping, which I believe most people are, stop it. Just stop. Lastly, to end on a high note, we have started our recruitment efforts for our chief's position, which Chief Moody is participating in. We have, as of this evening before the meeting started, 12 applicants. That our applicant pool looks solid and outstanding from all areas of the country, from Ohio to Chicago to real close to home here, California, Pennsylvania, as a matter of fact. So we have a great many people across the country that are interested in coming to help our community move forward. And I'm very grateful for that. So with that, anybody, any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
I'd just like to thank the chief and his officers, and Mason County Sheriff and the State Patrol for their excellent job as well. I was downtown for no group. I just wanted to observe, so I knew what the truth was the next day. And I think they did an excellent job putting themselves between 2 groups. And I think there was 3 groups. I think there was a Back to Blue, Black Lives Matter, and counter protesters. And I think they did an excellent job. I witnessed it up close. So thank you, Chief.
I would agree. I think everybody did an amazing job. I can't wait to see that many people downtown hanging out, having fun, spending money. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you all for your compliments to the staff. It's been given to the staff over and over, and they were thankful to hear the support from the council and the city manager on this.
Did a great job.
Thank you, Chief.
Absolutely.
All right, with that, on a good note, we'll end it. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, October 6th at 2020 at 6 o'clock. This meeting is adjourned at 7:18. Thank you, guys.